All right, we've got an absolutely jam-packed episode of Carving It Up Live tonight, starting with the Super Bowl rematch, Eagles-Chiefs. Philadelphia comes out on top. Why it is officially time. Folks, let's have an honest conversation. Eagles fans, look at me right now. It's time to ban the Tush Push, and everybody knows it, even you Eagles fans. Also, the Chiefs will be fine, talk about that. Also, get into the Dallas Cowboys' crazy win over the New York Giants yesterday, and why Dak Prescott still and always forever will own the Giants. Brian Schottenheimer, kind of like what he's doing, talk about that. Joe Burrow's out 3 months. He has to request a trade this offseason from the Cincinnati Bengals. Talk about that. My Steelers are incompetent on offense and apparently now incompetent on defense too. That's on Mike Tomlin. It's time to have some honest conversations about his future as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Caleb Williams, I don't know what's going on. Kid has unbelievable talent, but it's not working through the first couple of games of the season. Get to the Week 2 recap of all the games around the NFL. And at the end of the show, we got a Monday Night Football double dip, double header. I'll predict both games. Carving It Up is back and absolutely loaded, ladies and gentlemen. So let's drop the beat, baby. Here we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube, as well as on X, Instagram, and on Facebook. I am Bryson Carver. It's great to be with you after a great football weekend, although one that was not very kind to me. I mean, my Steelers lost yesterday. I saw that coming from a mile away, by the way. I said that on Friday. My Vols suffer about as devastating as a loss as you could possibly have against the Georgia Bulldogs. One false start and then a missed field. We could have won the game right there. Wait, we just missed the kick. I don't even know what to say after that. I'll touch on that in the Ball View more on Friday. I'll say my grief and anguish until then. And then in terms of my picks, 0 for 3 on If I Were a Bet Man. Right? Upset of the week was so close, if not for freaking Jake Browning leading a game-winning drive at the end. It was that close to picking the Jaguars correctly. And then when it was all said and done, Bryce's bleak bet actually did end up landing. The Patriots did beat the Dolphins on some special teams plays. But other than that, it was, from a football perspective, great weekend in terms of entertainment, bad weekend in terms of my picks. It was not ideal, to say the very least. But we're glad you're with us today. Again, tons of NFL to talk about. We'll touch on all the Week 2 action, get to a number of things, talk about the Cowboys' crazy win over the Giants. And my man, I can't wait to say his full government name for the first time in nearly 2 years on this show. It's going to be very exciting. Talking about Dak Prescott, talk about him, talk about, the Steelers' offense is struggling, shocker, but it's the Steelers' defense that has been an utter joke through the first 2 games of the season, and that falls, my friends, on Mike Tomlin. Touch on that, all kinds of stuff to get into. So let's go and get into the Super Bowl rematch, Eagles-Chiefs. Let's get started. But first, it is time that we have an adult conversation about something. I have been very pro Jalen Hurts, very pro Philadelphia Eagles organization, really since they won that Super Bowl, certainly. And Eagles fans might say, oh, now you're getting on the bandwagon. Now you're giving us credit. Listen, when you win a championship, what can I say? Especially when you win it in the form and fashion in which you did, which is dominate 3 of your 4 playoff opponents en route to beating the back-to-back Super Bowl champions badly in the Super Bowl. You were up 34-zip at one point. And I love Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts has been criminally underrated this offseason for a number of reasons. I've got videos on the channel that kind of detail that. It is officially time to kill the Tush Push. It's time to get rid of that. It is not only because I've been a proponent of getting rid of the Tush Push for 2 years. Not only is it not entertaining, but it's almost like, okay, first down and 8. If it gets to 3rd and 2, Philly's going to run the Tush Push. And then if it gets to 4th down and 1, they'll run the Tush Push again. It's an automatic play in the NFL for the Philadelphia Eagles. What has now become apparent about this particular play is that not only is it boring, not only is it automatic, I'll touch on those 2 points in just a moment. It is, and Tom Brady, I think the fact that the greatest quarterback of all time on the call for Fox yesterday might have changed. I don't want to say the momentum for this thing, because I think if the Eagles don't win the Super Bowl, it's a foregone conclusion that the Tush Push is gone next year. There was 2 votes shy of getting banned this year when they were the defending champions, and it would have come off as a little bit, we won the Super Bowl, cruised our way to a Super Bowl, lost 1 game after our bye week the entire rest of the year, and Jalen Hurts got hurt in that game, by the way, cruised to the Super Bowl, and you take away our most effective play. Right? They hate us because they ain't us. They can't beat us, so they got to take away our most effective play. It wouldn't have been the greatest look in the world. If the Eagles don't win the Super Bowl this year, 100% chance that baby's gone. So Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, Eagles offensive line, enjoy it while you got it, because it's gone after 2025. But Tom Brady's shown a light, shown a light on this yesterday in the Fox broadcast, and Dean Blandino, Fox's, rules expert, was all over it during the game. It's probably an illegal play. The center is lined up over the football. Not only that, the guards are false starting every play. The Chiefs were getting irritated about that. Other teams have gotten irritated about that in the past. Brady was pointing out, like, guys, look, throw the flag. Officials, like, have some attentiveness to the fact that they're jumping every play. It's very similar. If you remember 2 years ago when Jawan Taylor, right tackle for the Chiefs, in the season opener 2023, nationally televised game, Chris Collinsworth for NBC is like, yo, he's jumping every play. He's false starting every play. Officials keep throwing the flag, and that was a point of emphasis. For the record, officials have made taunting, while I disagree, a point of emphasis this season. I ain't moving forward. Next week, the Eagles got a big game against the Rams. Why that game is in the early window is beyond me. That should be the big Fox game or Sunday night game or Monday night game. It's a crime that that's in the early window, and some folks won't get to watch that. But be that as it may, that's going to be a point of emphasis next week, and you can guarantee it. But aside from that, aside from the legality of the rule or the legality of the play, which, let's be honest, Eagles fans, it's probably illegal. You're jumping every play. Your guards are in particular. The NFL has to ban this play after the season. I think they will, but they should. Because not only is it automatic and it takes all the drama out of the game, it's unbelievably boring and hard to officiate. Hard to officiate, boring. The NFL has precedent in addressing both of those matters. When it comes to boring, remember 10 years ago? They moved the extra point back from the 2-yard line to the 15-yard line because Roger Goodell, and he was very upfront about this. The point of emphasis was, yeah, it's still, especially by Brandon Aubrey, you saw him yesterday, especially by the modern day kicker standards, pretty much an extra point. But we saw Harrison Butker miss an extra point last week. Like it is not an automatic make. Like, okay, touchdown, go and get the extra point, 7-0. No, it's not necessarily a given. Whereas back in the day it was. You did not see missed extra points prior to 2015. In that AFC Championship game, I remember very vividly. I'm sure my man Tim Barner, the host of the Boston Sports Summit, check his show out. I'm sure he remembers this very well. AFC title game, that first year the new rule was in place, Broncos-Patriots, New England scores a touchdown, Steven Gostkowski misses an extra point, and the Patriots have to go for 2 the rest of the game and just to try and tie Denver the rest of the way. That play, in large part, may have cost New England the game because it wasn't automatic, and the NFL is an entertainment product at the end of the day, 100%, and they want to make sure that there's drama. Why does any television show, especially nowadays on linear television, why does any show get canceled after 1.5, or 2 seasons? It's boring. It's not drawing ratings. It's not entertaining. The play's not fun to watch. Not only that, but something that they think the NFL Competition Committee will introduce to the table this offseason, for the reasons I just mentioned, the false start, the fact the center is lining up over the football, all those things, it's difficult to officiate and no one knows what's what. For example, Jalen Hurts, there was a sneak on the drive right after the Travis Kelce dropped pick that goes back the other way. When Philadelphia is at the 1-yard line, they run the tush push, and honest to God, when they showed the goal line cam, it looked like Jalen Hurts. It looked like that ball probably crossed the goal line, but they called it short initially, and they were like, it's not obvious. It doesn't stick out like a sore thumb, so to speak. We're going to stick with the call, even though he probably did, but there's so many bodies in there, you can't freaking see. You can't see the play. You can't see whether Jalen Hurts got in. The NFL is a history. Very recently, again, in taking out a rule, taking out a player, not making something illegal, so to speak, in this instance, but taking something out that was difficult to officiate. The catch rule. Remember that? It really kind of blew up on the Dez Bryant catch, no catch, playing game against Green Bay in the playoffs. 4th down 2. I'm sorry, Cowboys fans to remind you. Romo throws a deep ball down the sideline. Dez makes an amazing catch. Should have been a catch. Goes down. Doesn't survive the ground, even though he catches it, takes 2 steps, reaches for the goal line, and they call it incomplete. And then a few years later, with my Steelers, Jesse James makes a catch, reaches across the goal line for a touchdown against the Patriots to possibly get the 1 seed, slams the ball on the grass, and they called it incomplete. Like, what? And then in the Super Bowl, that year's Super Bowl, Eagles-Patriots, Zach Ertz does ironically the same opponent, the Patriots. Zach Ertz does the exact same thing. Y'all were the beneficiary of this, Eagles fans, and they called it a touchdown. By the way, that was absolutely a catch, no question about it. But there was debate. I don't know. Was it a catch? Like, I mean, with Jesse James play and the Des Bryant and Calvin Johnson, like, I don't know. Like, it by the naked eye, any drunk fan in a bar could tell you, heck yeah, it's a catch. That should stand. But by the letter of the law, does it? So what the NFL do? Calvin Johnson rule. It's kind of garbage. No one likes it. Let's get it out of the NFL because it's tough to officiate. The officials don't know. There's no consistency there because there's no clear and obvious definition of what the play is. In the case of a tush push, it's that, and it's boring. The play needs to get banned. When you have, again, I want to emphasize this, and this matters, folks. You think this guy doesn't have cachet. The greatest quarterback in the history of the sport, Tom Brady, when you have him being like, guys, they're jumping every play. At one point, Dean Blandino literally says, and I quote, it was at the end of the game when Philadelphia is running the tush push to try and get the first down, bleed the clock out against the Chiefs. Dean Blandino literally says verbatim, man, I'm so sick and tired of the tush push. It's not fun to watch. It's difficult to officiate. Listen, there's data that says, because folks have said, oh, it's kind of dangerous. There's no data to suggest that necessarily. I'll give Eagles fans that. The data that's come out, there's nothing that's been just overtly obvious. But it's just a scrum. It's not a football play. It's not. It's a bunch of guys just jammed in there pushing a guy for a yard and a half. That's not football. Heck, that's not 1920s, 3 yards in a cloud of dust football. So the play has to get banned. It has to get banned. It's bad for television. It's hard to officiate. And by the way, the Eagles can still be great without it. They had this guy, Saquon Barkley. They had the best O-line in football. Jalen only had 100 yards passing yesterday. The Eagles' offense in general wasn't very good. Outside of the downfield pass to Devontae Smith, the pass game was non-existent. But Eagles fans may get mad, but deep down, they know it's true. If this were the Cowboys, Commanders, or Giants running this, they'd be calling for it to get banned as well, as they should. On the Kansas City side, then I'll get to comments because I see we got some activity in the chat. On the Kansas City side. So they're 0-2 now. The first time in the Patrick Mahomes era that they have lost 3 games in a row. And there has been, I don't want to say panic, so to speak, in the media and the narratives of the Chiefs. Maybe I'm consuming the wrong media. I don't know. But there certainly has been not the same Chiefs team that we've grown accustomed to. So if you watched that game yesterday, you could tell that thing meant a lot to Kansas City. First of all, and I was taking notes during the game, I'm like, Patrick Mahomes not only is running, which Patrick Mahomes does not run a lot in September, but he's out there, just like in the Chargers game, out there lowering his shoulder into guys like, whoa, this game means something to Patrick. This isn't just any old week 2 regular season home opener game. Patrick Mahomes wants this one. Andy Reid going for it on 4th and short in his own territory, which in the moment I'm thinking, what is he doing? The defense is playing well. Like, let's get another stop, get ourselves in good field position. What's going on? Travis Kelce, again, the play of the game, the turning point of the game. Kansas City's got this 8-minute drive. They're down in the red zone. Mahomes throws a perfect ball to Kelce. Right in his hands, into the Eagles DB, back the other way. Simmons, for the Chiefs, actually saved a touchdown to his credit. Or otherwise, it would have been all she wrote from that point. Of all the panic, so to speak, for the Chiefs, let me give Chiefs fans some positives. First of all, I thought Mahomes was really good last week against the Chargers, despite the fact that he lost his guy, Xavier Worthy, early on, comes back in, and the offense, if Chris Jones, more on him in just a second, if Chris Jones doesn't make a big mistake on Justin Herbert, Mahomes gets the ball back with a chance to win. I mean, extra point. Butker missed an extra point. It was not great. I thought Mahomes was good in that game against the Chargers. I thought, again, the numbers aren't going to, this is why I say, like what I said about Dak in week 1, watch the game. Patrick's got a great left tackle. That Simmons kid they drafted at Ohio State, amazing. He is the guy for the future. Mahomes has his left tackle for a decade. On the right side, not so much. In terms of the guard play, not great. Mahomes dealing with a lot of pressure. Ran the football effectively, led him in rushing, which isn't great, but he's got his left tackle. You were in a game with Philadelphia without your top 2 receivers, with Travis Kelce making a routine catch that should have, well, at least it should have been a routine catch, popped up back the other way. You get a stop in Philadelphia, you get the ball back with a chance to tie or win. I think Kansas City is going to be fine in this for these reasons. Number 1, their top 2 receivers will be back sooner rather than later. Rashee Rice, we know how long he's out. 6-game suspension. He'll be back, in a month. Xavier Worthy, a little bit more murky, a little bit more up in the air, runs into Travis Kelce. We'll see how long he takes to heal from that separated shoulder, because I imagine running into Travis Kelce doesn't tickle. Let's put it that way. But the Chiefs were in games like this all of last year. And people are like, oh, they were lucky. They won a bunch of close games. Things just so happened to break for them. To which I said all of last year, no, their great dynasty leading players made plays to win the game. Well, they haven't done so this year. The players are not identical. The roster is pretty much the same from last year. Again, change at left tackle, no Joe Tooney, so like that's a little bit different. Defensively, the secondary isn't quite as productive as it was last year. Generally, it's the same roster. They were dealing with receiver injuries last year. They were dealing with struggling running the football last year. It's pretty much the same team. What happens last week? Chris Jones makes a mistake. Instead of playing his assignment, he tries to be a hero. Justin Herbert runs for the first down as a result of it to end the game. Chris Jones makes a mistake. This week, Andy Reid. God, I love Andy Reid. I think he's the best coach in football. The heck you doing going for it on fourth down and short in your own territory? Your defense is playing well. You're not desperate. Let's punt it away, get the ball back, and let's go do something. Andy Reid made a mistake. Travis Kelce made the mistake. The pop-up, the drop that pops in the air goes back the other way for Philadelphia. Travis Kelce makes a mistake. Even Patrick Mahomes misses Tyquan Thornton on a deep ball wide open. Now he ends up hitting him later, but that ended up burning 40 seconds that Kansas City would have sure loved to have. The guys that have led this dynasty haven't done their part in the clutch. Now, that's not to say like they've choked or something, but it's to say last year they did do that. And I gave them credit because winning games in the NFL, winning close games in the NFL, margin of error is razor thin. That's an art. Kansas City hasn't been able to get that done this year. So they've got a road game against the Giants next week. I know Giants fans are happy. I should say happy. They're certainly pleased with Russell Wilson. Russell ain't hanging 37 points on the Kansas City defense next week. I can assure you of that. It'll be a desperate team next week. The Chiefs will be fine. I would not panic on Kansas City moving forward whatsoever. I got a bunch of comments. What do we have? EJ Savage, my guy, Boys of his own here from the Grid Network. He says, ban that tush push. Staying on the game. Jalen Hurts has 253 passing yards and 0 touchdowns through the air, all while completing 2 passes over 10 yards. Talking about on the season. Yeah, again, I'm a believer in Jalen. I think a lot of this has been some play calling issues. There have been some Philadelphia fans. I've seen some of their content that's like, man, I don't even recognize this offense. Like, we're not even pushing it down the field. What's going on? The one time we do, Devontae Smith makes a play. CTO. So the QB sneak has been around since the beginning. Listen, QB sneak, you can't ban the QB sneak. I'm all for it. All for it. And I've understood the argument from Eagles fans like, I don't know, the Bills ran it 3 times in an AFC championship game with big 6'6" Josh Allen of that great O-line and went 0 for 3. Totally get that. But the way they run it is illegal. It's difficult to officiate, and it's a terrible television product. EJ's just hating on Jalen Hurts. This is nasty work. Oh, yeah. Jalen's having a rough year. Jalen also has not lost a start since week 4 of 2024. Let's keep that in perspective. My bad. A start that he has not gotten injured in. CTL, why are you using a bad call to justify it? More bad calls, not fun to watch, says you. It's not fun to watch. I mean, you know it and I know it. EJ, yes, the downfield pass to Devontae Smith, also underthrown. Yes, I'm a hater, not of the person, genuinely good guy, but of the quarterback play. I mean, it was on a cover 0 blitz. Like, it's that is not an easy throw for Jalen Hurts to make. He's got to get that. That ball was probably intended to be underthrown, honest to God. Which, first of all, underthrown ball is oddly enough, it's the most difficult throw to stop in the National Football League because you are, worst case, going to draw pass interference. So there you go. Yeah, I think Jalen was mediocre in this game. I thought the Philadelphia Eagles offense, the run game. I mean, that's one thing that I said about Kansas City after the Super Bowl. That's the one good thing they did was stop Saquon Barkley. But then Jalen Hurts absolutely sliced them and diced them the way that he did in the Super Bowl. And so that's kind of been my defense of Jalen is, oh man, the numbers aren't great. Okay, is this fantasy football? B, I've seen multiple games now. In particular, the game against Dallas last week, and then the game in obviously the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, where the opposition says, Saquon, you're just not going to have an impact in this game. And Jalen absolutely torches you. More with his legs against Dallas and with his arm, he was magic against the Kansas City Chiefs in this past Super Bowl. So credit to them. And Philadelphia, again, I said it once, I'll say it again. It is NFL, what were you doing? NFL schedule makers are some of the best in the business, but what were y'all doing putting Rams, Eagles in the early window? Especially, I know the Cowboys draw ratings. I get it. Cowboys-Bears is a sneaky, really fascinating game on a number of levels next week. That's the big game on Fox. That should either be the big game on Fox or it should be the Sunday nighter over Chiefs-Giants. The Monday night game is pretty good. It's Lions-Ravens, but come on. Rams and Eagles, oh man, especially that. I mean, that was the one team that actually gave Philadelphia trouble in the playoffs. Could have easily beaten them. All right, I do want to transition to Joe Burrow because bad news with Cincinnati Bengals. It's a grade 3 turf toe, and he's going to be out at least 3 months. Obviously, imagine the Bengals will put him on IR. They're going to roll with Jake Browning, who, for what it's worth, threw 3 ugly interceptions against the Jaguars yesterday. But Philadelphia. Cincinnati gets the 4th down stop. Brian Robinson dropped the ball, but that's whatever the case may be. Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. dropped the ball. That whatever the case may be. Jake Browning drives him down the field, sneaks it over the top. Puts the ball over the Jaguars defensive line. Bengals win the game, and they're 2-0. Which for the record, that they haven't started 2-0 in some time, and that's kind of been the knock on the Bengals, right? Can't get off to fast starts. Well, now they're without their starting quarterback, their franchise quarterback, Joe Burrow, for the foreseeable future. There's some saying for the season. I can't tell. I'm not in the Bengals organization. I'm not in between those walls. Certainly not a doctor by any stretch, so I'll defer to the experts on that matter. Here's what I do know. When this season concludes, Joe Burrow needs to ask out of Cincinnati. If he wants any chance of having a Hall of Fame career, which we obviously know he's capable of having. He took a team to his only first full season as a starter. I don't know. He took the Bengals to the Super Bowl, knocking out the red-hot Raiders, the 1-seed Titans, the Kansas City Chiefs, and if not for Aaron Donald being Superman, they would have beaten the Rams in that Super Bowl. And then the next year gets into an AFC Championship game against Kansas City. But in that span, ACL tear in 2020, wrist injury in 2023, and now a toe injury in 2025. It is, I've said it a million times, it's criminal. And I said this as a Steelers fan. How the Cincinnati Bengals have taken this man for granted in terms of just the neglect of the offensive line. Listen, they've tried to address it. They brought in Orlando Brown, signed him to a big contract. That obviously it didn't work. They brought in Mims, the kid from Georgia. That hasn't panned out at all. They've tried to bring guys from Tampa. It just doesn't work. I'm about to show you 3 graphics that if you're a Bengals fan are going to make you sick. Here's the first one. Since entering the league in 2020, Joe Burrow has been hit 515 times. That's the 3rd most in the league. He's been sacked 230 times. That's the most in the league. He's been sacked 2.83 times per game. That is the 9th most in NFL history. And folks, it only gets worse. How about this one? Most hits taken per game. I saw this stat on First Things First today. Shout out to them. This is a shockingly bad graphic. Most hits taken per game since 2006. Andrew Luck's in first, Deshaun Watson's in second, Joe Burrow's in third. What do you know about that list? Andrew Luck was beaten to hell because of that garbage offensive line he had in front of him in Indianapolis. The tragic irony is that by the time that they actually got a real offensive line, his body had broken down. His body betrayed him, and he had to retire after 6 years starting in the NFL. It was the biggest what-if story because Andrew Luck was so darn talented coming out of Stanford. It's a shame how the Colts mistreated him in terms of the offensive line. Deshaun Watson, obviously we know about the off-field stuff, but Deshaun dealt with some bad O-lines early on in Houston. He broke down physically, and he's not even close to the same players. Hurt again. And then Joe Burrow, who's also hurt again. And folks, I saw folks saying, well, Joe Burrow, oftentimes he kind of looks for the home run ball, right? When you have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, you're going to throw it down the field. That is not true. At least that's not true in the sense of that's why he's taken as many hits as he has. Because we could show you this graphic from Pro Football Focus. Bengals pass block win rate since Burrow was drafted. So from 2020 to 2025, here's where they rank in the NFL in terms of pass block win rate. 29th, 30th, 27th. Last year, last. This year, 28th. If you're Joe Burrow, and I get it, folks will say, well, he's got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and they went to the Super Bowl. Cheap ownership group. I mean, for crying out loud, they didn't have an indoor practice facility until recently. They haven't put any care in the world into the offensive line. They've let the defense just fall apart in terms of letting guys walk in free agency. Again, they moved on from Lou Anarumo, who I maintain today, you're seeing through the first 2 games, was not the problem. They're going to end up letting Trey Hendrickson go in the offseason when it's all said and done. They gave him a raise. He's going to play this year. Hendrickson's going to be gone by the time it's all said and done. They let Joe Mixon go, so there went the running game. And now you're there once again with Joe Burrow down on the ground. I've suggested, let me just throw this out there. LA Rams, Now, again, there's a little bit of like, that's the team that beat us in the Super Bowl. Should we do this? LA Rams. This is probably 4 first-round picks and a player, but Stafford, I don't want to retire Matthew Stafford early because I don't know if you saw him yesterday and through the first 2 games. Stafford looks pretty darn good. That velocity's still there. He still moves for his age pretty well. But you can have a succession plan to him with a great O-line, with a great coach, with great weapons, a defense that, is more than competent, is excellent. The defensive line in LA is phenomenal. But at this point in time, I think we have to be honest about the situation of the Cincinnati Bengals. Folks are like, if only Joe Burrow had this, or if only Joe Burrow had an offensive line or a defense, or if only Joe Burrow had Andy Reid in Kansas City, or if he had the weapons Josh Allen has, or if he had Derrick Henry in Baltimore. And my response is, who knows? Because he's stuck in a tumultuous organization that has completely neglected everything that makes an NFL team successful other than quarterback, which they just so happen to luck into or to be bad enough to get. Won 2 games in 2019, got Joe Burrow in 2020, and they've taken him for granted since. He took a garbage O-line to the Super Bowl in 2021, took a garbage O-line to the AFC title game in 2022, had a phenomenal season last year, got MVP votes, and the Bengals still missed the playoffs. And the 3 other seasons, ACL tear, wrist injury that cost him the season, now a turf toe that could cost him the season. So this idea, and I think it's general consensus that he's the one carrying this entire operation. But I guess if I were Joe Burrow's buddy or agent or whatever, what's the benefit of you staying here? You're going to be the next cautionary tale. You are going to be this generation's Andrew Luck if you do not get out of Cincinnati. Because your body, folks, there's only so many hits the human body can take. And Joe Burrow's taken a hell of a lot of them. So I am deeply concerned. Again, I'm a Steelers fan. I'm not just trying to get Joe Burrow out of the division. I want this guy who's so darn talented, who's the most accurate quarterback in the league, who's an excellent leader, cool, calm, and collected under pressure, has a history of winning going back to college at LSU, got a mediocre team to the Super Bowl and then to the AFC title game with a mediocre coach. I should say no running game. Joe Mixon was there, but then again, they let him walk. And a defense that was fine, now is awful. The offensive line hasn't been good from the jump. Look out for yourself, man. Look out for what's best to your career. I know Joe's from Ohio. He obviously went to Ohio State before he transferred to LSU. I know there's this idea of, you got to be loyal. Be loyal to the right things. One of most of which, one of the things being worthy of that, your body. Joe's taking a lot of hits, man. I don't want to see his career wither away because of that garbage Bengals offensive line. Let's put up the graphic one more time because it is truly abhorrent. 20 in terms of pass block win rate, 29th, 30th, 27th, last 28th. They're bad. They're really bad. EJ Savage. I was about to say reminiscent of Andrew Luck. So it's and again, like Andrew Luck, like he can move. He's not Jared Goff, just a statue in the pocket. I don't want to see this guy's career get screwed up because of organizational incompetence. That's the main thing. All right, we will be back after the break to talk about the man, the myth, and the legend himself. I'll say his full government name after the break, but you know what I'm talking about. Number 4 who plays for the Dallas Cowboys. Talk about that in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Don't touch that dial, folks. Stay exactly where you are. We'll be back in just 1 minute. You know something, folks? This may be confusing to some members of our audience because let's just say what happened.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
The Dallas Cowboys won yesterday 42-37, and what was, without question, the game of the year in the National Football League. There's no question about it. We'll get into the crazy back and forths. But, it may be confusing to some members of our audience because they're like, wait a minute, Bryce, aren't you a Steelers fan? Well, yes, I am. I've got a Steelers hat right here. I've got a terrible towel somewhere in the studio. I'm going to be talking about them in just a second, about 10 minutes or so. But if there's one thing that loyal listeners and viewers of the show know is that I'm a fan of that guy who wears number 4 in Dallas. You know his name. Say it loud, ladies and gentlemen, and please say it proud. Rain, Dakota Prescott. Boy, it feels good to say that again. Let's see what he did in the fourth quarter and overtime against the New York Giants, who he owns, and we'll touch on that in just a moment. A touchdown, no picks, 187 total yards, including the pass that got them into Brandon Aubrey's 64-yard field goal range, which is insane. And then the run in overtime that made the attempt far shorter to win the game. 116.9 passer rating in that stretch. Game-tying drive in regulation. But by the way, prior to that, he had the go-ahead drive in regulation before Russell hit Neighbors on the moon ball. And of course, Dak had the game-winning drive in overtime and the biggest run of the game to set them up in field goal range for Aubrey to walk it off. But Dak, over the course of his career, and I said this coming in, and unfortunately, Dallas minus 5.5 was one of my if I were a bet man games. That the defense said, no, you're not allowed to have that, Mr. Carver. But when it comes to owning one individual franchise, man, Dak is almost unparalleled. We can show you some of the numbers. And some shout out to some great quarterbacks, some Super Bowl champion quarterbacks. Bob Greasy's got the record, 17 straight dubs against the Buffalo Bills back in the day. Shout out to Bob. He's obviously the quarterback of the last undefeated team in the NFL, the Dolphins. So 17 straight wins against Miami. Outside of that, Dak, 14 straight wins against the New York Giants. Tom Brady, 13 straight wins against the Bills. Then we can just go down the list. Steve Young had 13 straight against the Rams. Mahomes, Troy Aikman, and shout out to the late great Otto Graham. Mahomes had 12 wins against the Broncos. Aikman had 12 wins against the Cardinals. And Otto Graham also had 12 wins against the Cardinals. This is just nothing short of one man owning one franchise the way Dak Prescott has done. And just for, again, historical context, and then we'll get into this game for the Cowboys in all seriousness. Just to sort of get into the historical context of this. The last time, let's just go walk down memory lane for just a moment. I'm not one who tends to be nostalgic, but in the case of this, I'm making a special exception. The last time that Dak Prescott lost to the New York Giants, we could just show it to you right now. Tom Brady only had 4 rings. Patrick Mahomes was still at Texas Tech. Kevin Durant was in his first year with the Warriors. Think about how long ago that was. You remember where you were when KD signed with the Warriors? Oh, I sure do. It was a good day. Black Beatles was the number 1 song in the world. Josh Allen was still at Wyoming. Barack Obama was president. Lamar Jackson was still at Louisville. And shout out to Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. All-time great movie, by the way. Rogue One, A Star Wars Story was the number 1 movie in America. That's the last time Dak lost to the New York Giants. He's owned the franchise. And shout out to Brandon Aubrey for ensuring that streak continued. But let's talk about the game itself. Because had to give Dak his love. He's the man. We know this. Obviously, the elephant in the room is that Dallas's pass defense is just, it's awful. Russell Wilson's out here looking like 2018, 2019. Let Russ cook, Russell Wilson. I remember early on in 2020, he was like on a 2013 Peyton Manning trajectory for a second there. Then he really cooled off midseason on. But, just wheeling and dealing out here, throwing moon balls to Neighbors and Robinson, just throwing it all over the yard in Dallas. Looks fantastic. What is remarkable to me about the Cowboys' pass defense, fourth quarter, Russ hits the moon ball on 4th down. So you know that's the only way that they can beat you. Hit you. Dak goes right down the field. Go ahead, touchdown to Pickens. He then tries a second one. I believe that one was to Neighbors too. Misses it. Tries it again. For some reason, Dallas did not have the wherewithal to know, or the defensive strategy to know. This probably falls on Eberflus more than anybody. Neighbors is the best receiver best player on the field right now. Russell's probably going to look for him. Giants need a touchdown to win the game. Maybe be aware of that. Dallas, I don't know if you were watching yesterday, feels like they probably could have used a pass rush. Wait a second. Oh, gosh darn it, man. If only they had a great pass rusher. Oh well. But the good news, if you're a Cowboys fan today, obviously you've got a superstar quarterback in Dak Prescott. He's at top 10. It's not even debatable about where you have him. Anywhere between 6 and 10, he's Absolutely, unequivocally, indisputably in that class. I can go to over the list numbers, but I don't want to bore you all to death. You know you've got your number one CeeDee Lamb, who, listen, we all knew would bounce back after the drop fest, the 4 drops against the Philadelphia Eagles, including the 1 big drop. They probably win the game if he makes that catch. CeeDee was going to bounce back. He did, over 100 yards once again. Pickens, listen, he's going to wear thin in a lot of Cowboys fans by the time the season is over. I'm a Steelers fan. Just trust me on this. But he's a great number 2 receiver to have. Dak has had a true number 2 in a half decade. Well, he's got it now in Pickens. Okay. And the biggest, to me, feather in the cap of Brian Schottenheimer 2 games in, Dallas has a real running game. They do. Javonte Williams, by the way, first Cowboy running back since Calvin Hill, only Cowboy running back since the late, great Calvin Hill, to have 150 rushing yards in his first 2 games with the team. That'll work. Miles Sanders, again, solid player, had the big fumble last week against Philadelphia, but Miles Sanders, solid running back too. Javonte Williams, he had some good years in Denver, kind of fizzled out, works in Dallas. By the way, speaking of which, a big reason why it does work, that Cowboys offensive line, it's held up well. Now, again, last week you're playing Philadelphia without Jalen Carter, so that obviously makes a difference. But given the matchup, they were fine. In fact, the fact that they were playing a Giants defensive line, which don't we all, isn't it like a unanimous opinion? Yeah, Giants have maybe the best defensive line in football. One of the best, certainly. They're in that discussion. Dexter Lawrence, Abdul Carter, Thibodeau, all these guys. Yeah. And they still protected. Dak very well. Dak moved well. Again, Dak, it was kind of a story last week. He seemed like he's lost a little bit of weight. He's more chiseled, more muscle, moving around great. So if you're the Dallas Cowboys right now, you have to feel absolutely great today about where you're at from an offensive standpoint. And you have to imagine this year upcoming the draft. It's weird to talk about the draft in week 2, but this is going to be a defense heavy, a lot of defense heavy selections for Dallas. But I think right now, if you look at them, you say, okay, every year Dak has started and finished. We're always in the mix. Either worst case, we're just out of the playoff. Best case, we're in. And in some cases, with the 1 seed, 2 seed. As bad as the defense is, folks, it's not like they're facing a bunch of world-beating offenses coming up. So they got Chicago, which I think Chicago's a little better than folks think offensively. Again, we'll talk about them later in the show. But Chicago, that line has flipped a bit. Dallas was favored -1.5. Now it's gone to Chicago -1.5. So expect that line to kind of fluctuate throughout the week. Green Bay has a great offense. Okay. At the Jets, see Justin Fields yesterday, and Justin Fields in concussion protocol, knock on wood for him. We'll see if it's Tyrod Taylor, Fields, whoever it is. Jets don't have a good offense. Neither does Carolina. Bryce showed some signs, but Carolina doesn't scare you to death. Washington does. Denver does. Arizona kind of does. Raiders depends on the day. I think you're looking at a spot with the Cowboys where can we get to 10 wins? Now, I don't know if in the NFC 10 wins is enough to get you in. I had Atlanta winning 10 games this year. Obviously, a good win for the Falcons last night, but I had them as the first team out of the postseason. I had Dallas at 9 wins. But can they split with Philadelphia? Can they steal a game against a Kansas City and LA Chargers? I mean, Dak's 2-0 against Herbert in his career, so there's that. I'm not saying you got to feel amazing if you're a Cowboys fan. I am saying Mike McCarthy's biggest blind spot, and I thought Dak's best year of his career came with McCarthy calling plays. Credit where it's due. But even going back to Green Bay, and Aaron Rodgers, apologists, always lamented this. Man, if only Aaron had that running game Drew Brees got in New Orleans with Reggie Bush and Mark Ingram and eventually Alvin Kamara. And gosh, Brady always seemed like he had a decent running game in New England. And Peyton had Edger and James. Like, gosh, if only Aaron Rodgers had a real running game in Green Bay. That was never McCarthy's forte. Shocker. Matt LaFleur gets there. Green Bay's got a running game instantaneous with Aaron Jones. So that's something that Cowboys fans have to feel good about. I don't think anyone thought Javonte Williams was going to be some world beater, and he's not a world beater, but production's a lot better. More motion in the Cowboys offense. They use Kevontae Turpin a little bit in the running game. I like what I'm seeing. From the Cowboys right now. I really, really do. Again, anytime that you have number 4 quarterback, and I say this, like I'm not even just saying this for show or to joke or whatever, you got a chance to win every single game that you play. There's a lot of teams in the NFL that cannot say that. And let's say something else about Dak too, just to continue to praise the guy for what he's doing. Again, we're 2 games in with Schottenheimer, so we got to kind of wait to see how it plays out. But did Jason Garrett have his defenders in the media and in the Cowboys fan base? I mean, Jason Garrett's in the media now, so that tells you all you need to know. And I love Jason Garrett as a dude, but not a great head coach. Hasn't Mike McCarthy's game management, clock management, as I just mentioned, inability to develop a running game, hasn't that always been like, Mike doesn't have them ready to play in the biggest games, and the clock management's a problem. And now Brian Schottenheimer 2 games in. The running game looks good, so far so good. But we're 3 coaches in with Dak. He's worked with all of them. Got the 1 seed with Garrett, almost won MVP with McCarthy, and through 2 games with Schottenheimer looks as good as ever. So this idea that last year was some sort of like referendum on Dak, he did not play well last season. But he's now got a number 2 receiver for the first time in almost a half decade. He's got a running game for the first time since Zeke was in his prime. Now, the problem is he doesn't have a defense. The problem is the Cowboys are going to have to win a lot of games, maybe not quite as dramatic as what they won yesterday against the Giants, where it's, 5 lead changes in the fourth quarter. Aubrey's having to hit field goals from midfield, which he's capable of doing, by the way. At some point, can we see him attempt a 70-yarder? Schottenheimer, if the Cowboys next week in Chicago, now again, Windy City, who knows the conditions? Okay, how about week 4 against Green Bay in Jerry World? Sure, Jerry's going to make sure the roof is closed for that game. If it's at the end of the half and Dallas is at their own 47, that'd be about a 70-yarder. If they're at their own 47 with 2 seconds left, try it. Dak, 1 completion to Ferguson, just like this week. Let him try it. No one's ever, I think a kicker for Jacksonville might have made a 70-yarder in preseason, if I remember correctly, but that doesn't count for the record books. It's the 64-yarder didn't just sneak in. Like for a second there, it was, it looks like he maybe pushed it a little too far to the right, but then it kind of curves in to the left, past the right upright. I'm watching that and I'm like, that thing would have been good from 71 to, drilled it. And then obviously the walk-off, it's right down the middle. That's easy for him. That's like talking about the old extra point. That's like the old extra point for Brandon Aubrey. I want to see him try it. I really do. But Cowboys fans, you should feel good today. You should. You avoided 0-2. Dak still owns the Giants, so nothing has changed. Pass defense sucks. That's going to be a problem against Jordan Love, Mahomes, Hurts, Herbert, some of these quarterbacks you face down the road. Who's some of the other good quarterbacks they play? Bo Nix, Geno solid. Obviously, Jaden Daniels twice. Goff. Oh, man. Oh, my gosh. What are the Lions going to do to Dallas's defense? Is that a Thursday night game later in the season? I think that's after Thanksgiving. Yeah, that might be like Dak may have to throw for like 500 yards for the Cowboys to win that game just to keep pace with Detroit after the way Detroit looked yesterday. And we'll talk about the Lions and Bears in about 10 minutes or so. I was dreading this point in the show. I really was. But we have to talk about them. Before we do, Dak Prescott after the game.
That's belief and faith in each other. A lot of ebbs and flows, a lot of ups and downs in this game. But that's complimentary football right there to its finest. When they let them score, we came back and responded. When we didn't score in overtime, they stopped them, gave us opportunities. An amazing game, hell of a game, fun game.
Dak's always a great quote. We know this. Okay, now to the point in the show I was dreading the most is my Pittsburgh Steelers losing to the Seattle Seahawks 31-17 yesterday. And, I have to say I did call this from a mile away. Throughout the week and on Friday's show, I picked Seattle to win the game, obviously to cover, but I picked Seattle to win straight up. But there was this, and there tends to be this, folks. It's a classic example. Doesn't it always seem like the prettiest girl or the best looking guy always get the other? What I mean by that is aesthetics will take you a long way in and of themselves from an eye candy perspective. And that applies to this because, boy, Aaron Rodgers still throws a gorgeous football. Man, he fools a lot of people on a consistent basis. Boy, Aaron's back. Look at him wheeling and dealing against the Jets. Look at him throwing darts. Look at him with the old man celebration. Only thing was missing was the old discount double check, but he's not with State Farm anymore, so that might be copyright. But, man, Aaron's back. He's about to have a Tom Brady 40-something-year-old season right off of the sunset. Steelers are going to win a playoff game. They might threaten Baltimore for the division. Watch out. And I said, folks, a lot of that is, the Jets aren't very good. We saw that play itself out yesterday with their matchup against Buffalo. A lot of that was Arthur Smith, to his credit, called a great game in the sense of, Aaron, get the ball to your hands quickly. Let's limit the penalties. We got to play ahead of the sticks because this offensive line is absolutely, positively dreadful. And Aaron yesterday, offensive line wasn't as good, and he struggled.
You done messed up, Aaron!
We can show you his numbers because Ron did mess up. This is what he did yesterday against the Seahawks. 1 touchdown, 2 picks. The first one in his defense was not his fault. Calvin Austin tipped the ball. That was not on Aaron Rodgers. The second one was pretty ugly. 203 passing yards. Some of that he got in garbage time. 54% completion. That's bad. 58 rating is atrocious. That's part of the reason Lamar Jackson actually passed him yesterday in the all-time passing yards rankings list. He had a QBR 0 to 130. Not good. And the Pittsburgh Steelers scored a grand total of 3 second-half points. They got a field goal in the second half in totality. Now, again, in Aaron's defense, not all of that is on him. Because when he is taking the snap immediately against, by the way, a great Seahawks D-line, Leonard Williams, DeMarcus Lawrence, Seahawks D-line has some dudes. But the second the guy takes snaps, he's got pressure coming around the left side, almost like Dan Moore would have helped you out. Almost like, actually addressing an offensive line for the first time in the Mike Tomlin era and developing an O-line might have actually helped the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's really what I want to talk about. The fact that Aaron is not very good, the fact the Steelers' offensive line is dreadfully bad, the fact that they can't run the ball, I expected that. I knew that coming into the season. The fact that Aaron, after the game, kind of took a shot at receiver, Calvin Austin, we're already in that early process. Aaron's taking shots at people. We're 2 games in. Just wait till it gets like week 8. It's going to get ugly. I expected all of it. Last week against the Jets was a shock. It was not the norm. I want to talk about Mike Tomlin. Because for years, you were considered pretty much a bad person if you pointed out the fact that, the non-losing season thing doesn't really matter when you haven't won a playoff game in almost a decade. And by the way, in all those playoff games, we can show the numbers. In the last 5 playoff games, you've been bludgeoned to start. Mike Tomlin, Mr. Motivator as a head coach, right? Standard is the standard. Yeah, they were down 21-0 to Blake Bortles on the Jags, lost that game at home off of a bye. In 2020, they were down 28-0 to the Browns without their head coach. 2021 down 35-7 to the Chiefs. 2023 down 21-0 to the Bills. And maybe most alarmingly, a team you always play close games. Steelers-Ravens is always close. It's always decided by a field goal. Down 21-0 to the Baltimore Ravens in that playoff game. So this whole Tomlin, he's Mr. Motivator. No, he's not. Let's get that. Maybe he was. He's not anymore. Now he's not even a good defensive coach. Like Tomlin's calling card. Motivator, great defense. Well, the motivator, that's been nonsense for some time. The great defense is as well. First of all, can we show some of the numbers on Tomlin? Do we have this? Do we have the numbers on Mike Tomlin? Okay, so here's one of the. This is, again, more of an indictment of the offense and the fact that they can't develop an offense under Mike Tomlin. But add it to the list. When the Steelers allow 30 or more points, 7-42. Since Big Ben retired, 1-9. And the 2017 playoff loss to Jacksonville, 1-19. Again, that's when the Steelers allow 30 or more points. Here's the worst stat. It's one thing for the offense to be bad under Tomlin. That's to be expected. The defense is atrocious. Last 10 games, folks, for the podcast audience, think about this, those that are listening. The Pittsburgh Steelers have given up 27 points per game. That ranks 28th in the NFL. What are they, the dang Bengals? 375 yards total average given up per game. That's 29th in the NFL. 10 consecutive games of allowing 300 yards of offense. That is the longest streak currently in the National Football League. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Who has the highest paid defense in all of football? The Pittsburgh Steelers. In large part, because they think we can just win with old 2005 football. We can get after the quarterback, get a couple turnovers. By the way, which they did. Jalen Ramsey had a pick early. There was a play. Nick Herbig makes a play. Like, Steelers defense, in some respects of the game, did their job. Another feather in the cap. I said there were 2. There were really 3 with Mike Tomlin. Number 1, great motivator. Nonsense. That's playoff resume would tell you that. Number 2, great defensive coach. I don't know. Steelers have been one of the worst defenses of football for some time now. For over a half season total stretch of sample size. The third of which, man, they just find a way to dig out these wins because they're great situationally. Can't even say that either. New kickoff rule. Dynamic kickoff rule. Ball falls short of the goal line. You got to return. The ball rolls short of the goal line, rolls in the end zone. That's a live ball. Now, you can You can say the kid, Caleb Johnson, I think is his name. You could say that that's a mistake on the rookie's part, rookie mistake. That's on Tomlin and the coaching staff to let him know that. Now, he touched the ball, so like even in the old rules, like that would have been a live ball. But let's say Caleb Johnson never touches the ball at all. Still a live ball. You know who did know it? The Seahawks, the younger coach. He knew it. Mike McDonald, his team knew that. The Steelers are not just Caleb Johnson. If you watch, the Steelers are jogging off the field. Okay, touchback. Start at the 35-yard or the 30-yard line. 35-yard line. Seahawks are running like a bunch of crazy guys all the way to the football, jump on it, touchdown. It's a poorly coached team. It's a poorly motivated team. And the guy who is the defensive wizard, Mike Tomlin, boy, he's always got that defense ready to go. Can't even say that anymore. Put up the stat one more time. Just look at that bottom one. 10 consecutive games of allowing 300 yards of offense. Now, folks, the Bengals haven't done that. Think of your worst defense in the league. But I don't think Buffalo's that good. Buffalo hasn't done that. 300 yards of offense allowed. Longest streak in professional football. The whole thing that was supposed to piece this together was Mike Tomlin. TJ Watt got paid. Cam Hayward got paid. Got Patrick Queen a year ago. I get the secondaries beat up. I get it. You traded Minkah Fitzpatrick for reasons I'm not entirely sure. Jalen Ramsey's been solid. I'll give credit where it's due. He made the play last week against the Jets, had a pick this week. Jalen Ramsey's been fine. I got no real qualms thus far with that. But that's your calling card. It's kind of like Brandon. He's not as bad as Brandon Staley. I'm not going to overreact here. But it's like when Brandon Staley was with the Chargers and it was like, the fourth downs were bad and the misinterpretation of analytics was bad. But really what got Brandon Staley fired in the end is he's a defensive coach and his defense was atrocious. That's what got him fired. What's Tomlin's calling card? Can't say he's a motivator because, we can show you one more time how the Steelers start their playoff games. They're bad. This is Mike McCarthy is like, oh gosh, that's terrible. Mike McCarthy's known for, he doesn't get off to hot starts. Mike Tomlin's even worse. Defense is great. 10 straight games of giving up 300 yards. Situationally great. You had a guy botch a kickoff. Seattle's team, young coach and Mike McDonald, he was aware of it. Seahawks were aware of it. And even just, folks, this is even just the little things. And Steelers fans, folks that watch the game start to finish, you'll know. Okay. It's 14-7 at the end of the half. You're at your own, I think it was their own 20-yard line, if I remember correctly. It was off of a punt. There's, 15, 20 seconds left in the half. You're up 14-7. By the way, you get the ball to start the second half. You got momentum. Rodgers threw a touchdown to DK. DK got a touchdown against his old team. Everybody's feeling good. You got a turnover off Darnold, and boy, the Steelers defense is rolling. Here we go. We feel good. We're about to be 2-0. And instead of taking a knee, some teams will be like, let's run the football, see what happens, and then if nothing happens, we'll just go to the half, go to the locker room. Knowing he has a terrible offensive line. He has Aaron Rodgers drop back and get sacked. Why does your 41-year-old quarterback have to take that hit? Aaron even kind of, and again, I've been critical of Aaron's leadership. Aaron kind of just looked at the sideline like, why did we just do that? There's a play in the second half. At midfield, 4th and short, punt. Doesn't use analytics, which I've always said about analytics. You should not make them, I've mostly said this for baseball than any sport, but they should not make every single decision. That's what hurt the Yankees in many instances, but you're a fool if you don't use them. They help you. Those numbers mean something. They're there to help you. Tomlin doesn't use analytics. Tomlin is not a good defensive coach. Can't get the most highly compensated defense in the NFL to play better than it does, to not give up 300 yards in 10 straight games. He's not a good motivator. The question I ask is, what is the standard? That's what Tomlin says, right? The standard is the standard. What is the standard? What does that mean? Is that like a tangible thing, or is it just kind of a cliche quote that Tomlin tends to give more than once? I've said the only silver lining about Aaron Rodgers being in Pittsburgh, and again, Aaron was bad yesterday. Don't get it twisted. I can't even put yesterday on him because I kind of expect him to be old, 41, struggling to move because, he's 41, 2 years off of Achilles surgery and his offensive line is bad. I expected that. I mean, he looks like he's running in quicksand. He's old. Father time's undefeated. Can't get that mad at Aaron. I expected the offense to be incompetent. but you're supposed to hold up your end of the bargain. The one silver lining of Aaron being in Pittsburgh, maybe it finally allows Steelers management to see the light. This coach is behind the times. This coach overvalues the wrong side of the ball. This coach cannot develop an offensive line. This coach does not value the quarterback position. If he did, he would not have traded a first-round pick in 2019 after an 0-2 start and a Big Ben injury for a safety, which eventually led to a class that featured Burrow, Tua, Herbert, Hurts, and Love. And the Steelers didn't have a first-round pick in that draft because they had to get a safety to make sure that defense was good and make sure that non-losing streak continued that nobody cares about. What is the standard? I've asked that for multiple years in the show. The standard is mediocrity. That's what the results show us. Highest paid defense in the NFL. And you've been off. Did you see the Jets yesterday? Did you see that Justin Fields threw for 27 yards? Last week he looked like freaking Lamar Jackson. I mean, what are we doing here? It's unbelievable. But we got some comments. It looks like folks are looks like the Eagles fans have infiltrated and are pro Tush Push. Listen, that's fine. Like I get why the Eagles fans are pro Tush Push because it works. But like I said earlier, the play's probably illegal in terms of where the center lines up on the ball and the fact that the guards, again, hand to God, this is probably on me. I didn't notice it. Tom Brady, greatest quarterback ever, is out here pointing it out in the broadcast over and over and over. Like, guys, the guards are jumping too fast or jumping ahead of the snap. And it's a boring play. The NFL gets rid of boring plays. See the extra point 10 years ago. And they get rid of plays that are difficult to officiate. See the catch rule. Like, it's going to get banned and it should get banned. But just back to the Steelers. I don't know. What's the benefit of keeping him? Stability? What kind of stability? 9-8? Is that the standard in Pittsburgh? I mean, we'll see what becomes of Cincinnati, but you got one dysfunctional team in the division in the Bengals, who just so happens to have a generationally gifted quarterback who they can't protect. And the Browns are always a disaster. That goes without saying. And then you got the Baltimore Ravens, who are, for my knocks on them and their inability to hold double-digit leads, and I talked about that last week and why I can't trust them, they're as well-run of a franchise as there is in the NFL and sports. Great ownership, GM. I don't love Harbaugh, but he's a good coach, no question. Has those guys ready to play. Just has really. It's not that he doesn't have them ready to play. It's just that he doesn't have them ready to close. All-time talent. All-time talented quarterback in Lamar Jackson. It's and you're just middle of the pack, and you've chosen that route because you value the wrong things. Because quarterback and offensive line, the most important position on the field, the most important unit on the field. I mean, that's why you sign Aaron Rodgers. Folks, I was thinking about this yesterday. There were like 10 teams that needed a quarterback last offseason in a year that featured a very weak quarterback draft. No one was interested in Aaron Rodgers except for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Russell Wilson's market, let's be honest, was kind of low last year. Russell balled out yesterday, credit where it's due, but market was kind of low. Steelers signed him. They drafted Kenny Pickett. Why? He's a local kid. Played at Pitt. Played in the stadium. Was he a first-round talent? Lord, no. Do we need a quarterback in 2020 to replace Big Ben? Yeah, probably. You know what? That's what the Green Bay Packers did. They still had an in his prime Aaron Rodgers, who's we know is temperamental, to say the very least. And they said, so was Brett Favre. Let's draft a quarterback. Aaron didn't like it. By the way, nor should have. I totally get Aaron not liking that move. But the Packers said, you're still great. You're still a franchise guy, but we also got to look out for the future. And how's that worked out for Green Bay? They value the right things. Green Bay's the anti-Steelers, like Midwest team, iconic brand. They value defense. That they showed you that by trading for Micah Parsons and by some of their draft picks. Like, you can still value the defensive side of the ball. It's critical. We know this. You don't have the quarterback and offensive line, you're cooked. Look at Cincinnati. No, Cincinnati doesn't value defense at all, so maybe that's a bad example. But just on the offensive side of the ball specifically, we got a quarterback and two great weapons. Yeah, you also can't protect him. He's hurt again. That's the moral of the story. Value the right things in the NFL. Mike Tomlin does not, to put it mildly. By the way, Tampa and Houston is about to start in just a second because it's the top of the hour. It's 7 o'clock now, Eastern Standard Time. Buccaneers-Texans kicks off. Again, it could be any minute by now. Just for integrity's sake, I was going to save both games, the Monday Night doubleheader, for the end of the show. I don't even need background music. I'll just go and put up my final score. I'm going to take the Texans to win this game. A lot of y'all know I'm not very high in Houston this year because of how bad the offensive line is, because of the fact that outside of Nico Collins, the receiving core is pretty weak, because of the fact that Joe Mixon is out for the first 4 games of the year at least. But the defense is outstanding. Tampa Bay's got multiple injuries in the offensive line. Tristan Wirfs is out. I don't know if Gedeke is going to play. I haven't checked, but Gedeke is injured. Chris Godwin's out. Like, there's some real serious injuries on that Tampa Bay offensive line and in the receiving core. And the fact of the matter is, in Houston, crowd's going to be electric. It's one of the more underrated home field advantages. Texans got a really good home crowd. Credit to them. And so Monday Night Football, they need to win. They don't want to start 0-2. So I think Baker's going to be under duress. It'll be a close game, but I've got Houston at -2.5 and to win this game outright. Just wanted to say that before the game kicks off because, you know, if I look down at my phone, because I'm always looking at my phone, see if there's anything any breaking news or scores or whatever the case may be, and I see it's like, oh, it's 14-0 Houston. Yeah, of course you're picking the Texans. Just for the integrity of the show, I wanted to make sure that I lock that down. Yeah, actually, let's go to break, and then I'll do a week 2 recap around the NFL because there's a lot of stuff I want to get into. So stay tuned. Carving Up Live. We'll be back in just 1 minute. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody stopping by on this Monday. We're going to do a week 2 recap of all the other games that I didn't talk about around the National Football League, starting with the Rams beating the Titans. Listen, I was feeling great about Tennessee plus 5.5 after a while. I'm thinking the Rams offense doesn't really have it going. Listen, Cam Ward, his first touchdown pass has to be, and Cam Ward's a really good kid and an excellent talent. I think he has a bright future. Has got to be the dumbest first touchdown throw in the history of the NFL. He's out here rolling to his right. He's 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and he just totally off balance throws across his body. Like, that would be a dumb play from Mahomes or Josh Allen. Like what are you doing? Again, lucky for him, receiver comes down with it. But yeah, that was the ultimate. I'm watching. I'm like, Cam, what are you doing? Okay, it worked. So it's gonna be interesting. Is Brian Callahan the type of coach to be like, yeah, don't ever do that again. Like, you're a dude who can play backyard football. It's fine. It's like you can beat teams from the pocket, but you can make these plays outside of it. That's what made you so special at Miami. Don't ever do that again. That was, yeah. But no, on the Rams side of things, if you hadn't told me that Matthew Stafford had a back injury in training camp, I wouldn't know. I mean, the velocity is there. He's moving well. Yes, he has one of, if not the best offensive coach in football, in Sean McVay. The reverse to Puka Nacua, who took it the distance. That second level speed that Puka's got at his size is off the charts. But the connection with Devontae Adams, I mentioned this last week, really good. Seemed to be on time, on target. I mean, the running game was working as well, but most of that was Puka. We know how great the Rams defensive front is. And I threw this out on Friday's show. I'm going to stick to it. I think every once in a while, I'm an anti-conspiracy theory. I don't think if you don't know something, you should just make something up. With that being said, I am okay with just throwing out something like, let's see if it happens. Just kind of a fun, what the heck type of deal. I'm telling you right now. What if Aaron Donald joined the team late season for a playoff push? I don't know. Have you seen Aaron Donald's social media? Still in pretty good shape. He certainly would be prime 2018 to 20, I don't know, 21. Shoot, he was still a great player. He's still the best defensive player when he retired, for crying out loud. He was getting triple teamed. What am I talking about? He's one of the 4 best defensive players in the history of the league, in my opinion. He's unstoppable. But you add him to a group that features Jared Verse, Byron Young. Listen, Jared Verse is the man. Byron Young, go Vols, by the way. A strip sack on Cam Ward, kind of a turning point in the game. Like, he is a one-man wrecking crew on the other side. Put Aaron Donald on that team. Eric Weddle did this with the Rams back in 2021, their last Super Bowl winning season. Signed late year, played some games, played pretty well, won a Super Bowl, went back in retirement. Couldn't hurt Aaron Donald. 2 rings, should have been Super Bowl MVP in that first Super Bowl against the Bengals. Like, that was a crime he didn't get it. No disrespect to Cooper Kupp. Aaron Donald was the MVP of that game. But just don't rule it out. Do not rule it out. I could see Aaron Donald coming back late season. But on the Rams offensive side of the ball, they've gotten off to these slow starts late season in the regular season prior to the playoffs. Like, they were kind of sluggish. They couldn't get to 20 points. I don't know what it is, but thus far they've gone off to a hot start. That game against, how good of the game is that, folks? Philadelphia and the Rams next week in Philadelphia. I kind of wish that they had scheduled this late season, because obviously that playoff game, part of what made it such a classic is the snow. You see Saquon Barkley hitting his head, hitting his helmet as he's running to the end zone. It's an iconic NFL film shot. Yes, I'm willing to say iconic. It was great. So I kind of hate that it's the 1:00 window in week 3, but still, that is, oh my gosh, that's such a good game. Those might be the 2 best teams in the NFC along with Green Bay. So I guess 2 of the 3 best teams. So you'll see why I have both of them on Bryson's Best 10 on Wednesday. What else we have? Bengals beat the Jaguars. I already talked about the Bengals side of it. Listen, I think an argument can be made Jake Browning's the best backup in the league. I mean, he stepped in 2023, played relatively well, had the Bengals in the playoff picture all the way into week 17. He's pretty good. Again, the 3 picks were ugly. Those were bad. The fact that the Jaguars couldn't capitalize was even more concerning. Listen, I know Trevor's taking a lot of heat today. He threw a really brutal red zone interception early in the game when I thought, man, if the Jags score, it's 14-0. The way Joe Burrow, I think this is before Burrow went down. The way Burrow was taking shots early, I'm like, yeah, they're going to ride the momentum and win this game quite easily. And it still comes down to, that Liam Cohen is kind of showing up his quarterback on the sideline. He's like hitting his chest, like hit him in the chest. And Trevor kind of waves him off. Like, okay, that's not ideal. Okay, maybe there might be some issue between the quarterback and coach. You never want that to be the situation. Cohen kind of confirmed that in the post-game presser. But even still, up 3, 5 minutes to go. Brian Thomas Jr. makes a catch. Jags win the game. They get the first down. They almost certainly score a touchdown. They're up 10. The game's over. So I still buy the Jags as an 11-win team, as the AFC South champion. Although, gosh, Indianapolis, we'll talk about them, but they're really giving the Jags and everybody in that division a run for their money. But I liked what I saw from Cincinnati yesterday. A lot of resilience. And my man Ryan Flowers, the comment. Shout out to Ryan. Check out his show, NFL Matchups, tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. But he says the Bengals are literally wasting Joe Burrow's talent. They can't protect him. I talked about that to start the show. And since you're here, Ryan, just for you, because Ryan is a friend of the show and a friend of mine, certainly. Here's Cincinnati's pass block win rate since Burrow was drafted. Never higher than 27th. Last year, they were last in pass block win rate, and the most disturbing stat of all is that one right there. Most hits taken per game since 2006. Andrew Luck's in first. How long did he last? Deshaun Watson in second. Off-field stuff, but he also took some huge hits in Houston and is now, he's got an Achilles injury that he's rehabbing from now. And Joe Burrow's in third. Third major injury. ACL in 2020, wrist in 2023, toe in 2025. And by the way, even before that, man, he was taking some shots yesterday. If you watched early that game, I literally took on my notes. This guy's not playing 17 games. He's not going to survive. And now, as it turns out, he may not see him the rest of the year. So the Bengals win that game. As for Jacksonville, the only concern I have is quarterback and coach relationship. And Ryan's like, yeah, that's crazy. It is a wild stat. I knew the Bengals offensive line was bad, but gosh, when you look at you just cringe when you see the Burrow stats. What else we got? Ravens taking out the Browns yesterday, doing what they were supposed to do, 41-17. Again, that, to Baltimore's credit, that said a lot about them, because it's 20-3 going into the fourth, and it's like, they had a game like this, a very similar situation last year, and I talked about it throughout the week. Lost the heartbreaker, the Isaiah Likely toe in week 1, blow a double-digit lead to the Raiders in week 2, and by the way, almost blow it against Dallas the following week. Dak went on a crazy fourth-quarter run. Lamar Jackson kind of saved him at the end. And then this year, total choke job against Buffalo. Not to take credit from Josh, but that was a choke job against the Bills. And then this week, it's like, okay, division rival, the Browns, Joe Flacco making his first return to Baltimore, like 11.5-point favorite. I'm like, I'll take the Ravens minus 11.5 because they're so much more talented than Cleveland, and that goes without saying. But could I see the Browns make it a little interesting? Sure. So Baltimore pulled away. I want to give Lamar Jackson some love today. This is insane. Someone pulled this stat, and I confirmed it. Lamar Jackson's last 20 starts. Let's show the numbers. These are absurd. In his last 20 games, Lamar Jackson, 57 total touchdowns and 4 interceptions. 57 to 4 touchdown interception ratio. That work? Yeah. He's got almost 5,000 passing yards. He's got over 1,000 rush yards, 67% completion, and a pass rating of 125. This wasn't the pass rating. That's not yesterday. That's in his last 20 games. 125 pass rating. And by the way, he also became the NFL's all-time leader in pass rating. He passed Aaron Rodgers for that mark. He's slightly over Aaron at 102.6 or something. And so, and by the way, he's also the NFL's all-time leader among quarterback rushing yards. Listen, he's got to get it done in the playoffs, and I have been as vocal about that as anybody. But the guy is just, he retires today, and he's going to Canton. I'm sorry. I mean, that resume, 2-time MVP, he's utterly phenomenal. Phenomenal. Bills, Jets. Speaking of phenomenal quarterbacks, again, classic example of, I'm watching this game, and I was shocked to see that Josh Allen had a pass rating of 73 and only had $148 passing. I thought Josh was sensational. Making all the throws, third down. There's a play late in the third, or early in the third, rather. Buffalo's up. I think it was 20-3 at this point. James Cook had just had the long touchdown run in the first half. Josh is jogging out of bounds, and they're inside the red zone. Josh is not jogging out of bounds. He literally just is walking and stepping out of bounds with the Jets defender pursuing him. Like this guy's just toying with the Jets. And so for Justin Fields, unfortunately, in concussion protocol, it was even before that just bad. I mean, inaccurate. Kind of looks like the old concerning stuff with Justin Fields. Not accurate. Not that good of a natural thrower. Makes the Steelers look even worse last week. The fact they made this guy look like he was going to be a offensive player of the year candidate. I mean, he was amazing against Pittsburgh. And then he came back down to earth. I don't know is that bad of a player as what he showed, but he's certainly not as good of a player as what he showed last week. He's somewhere in the middle. But, Bills took care of business. By the way, they're 13.5-point favorites against Miami on Thursday. You understand why. Speaking of Miami, lost to New England 33-27. It's the game of special teams. Miami returns a punt for a touchdown. New England, I think it was Keyshawn Butte that returned the kick for a touchdown, and the Patriots end up surviving. Listen, Drake May was solid. Completion percentage was good. Again, there's still some rawness there, and you could see Josh McDaniels at times kind of dials it back a little bit in terms of his play calling. But good win for New England. They're 1-1. I do think there was a little bit of overhyping and overrating of the Patriots coming in. A lot of folks were like, man, easy schedule, upgraded coach, spit in free agency, quarterback going into year 2. Like, that's a playoff team. They might be. Who knows? But thus far, I'm not like, oh, yeah, that's one of the 7 best teams in the AFC. Now, again, it's not always the 7 best teams that get in, per se, in the postseason. Some of it's scheduling breaks, injuries, the whole bit. But you had to like what you saw for the Patriots yesterday. As for Miami, I mean, that missed throw from Tua to Tyreek on third down. I mean, and Tyreek is jumping up and down, pissed off. Tua took a little bit of a dig at Tyreek in the postgame. I feel I'm telling you, I'm going to be right about this. I said before the season, I'm like, Tyreek's not going to be a Dolphin when the season's over. The only thing that could bar that from happening, there's some off-field concerns we won't get into with Tyreek that are, disturbing. Tyreek's had a history of off-field incidents. That might scare teams away from trading for him. Other than that, he's not long for Miami. First of all, he wanted out last year. And I know there's been oh, man, should the Chiefs trade for him? Man, the Chiefs have already got Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy coming back. Receiver's not the Chiefs' problem long-term this season. That's not their issue. And by the way, it'd be kind of a weird dynamic. Is Tyreek the one receiver? You want to get Rashee Rice targets? What are you going to do with Hollywood Brown? How is Travis Kelce, even at his advanced agent stage of his career? How does he fit into that? I think Tyreek probably ends up on an NFC team somewhere when it's all said and done, but he's not long for Miami. And by the way, Mike McDaniel could probably say the same thing. I'm going to elaborate on this more on Wednesday's show when I predict this game and talk about this game. I think it is on the board. McDaniel gets fired if they lose to Buffalo. I think it's absolutely on the board. If they get blown out by Buffalo, and look at the line, it's 13.5. Bills. Not great. I wanted to talk about this. 49ers and Saints. I really wanted to talk about this. So, this is the rare, and I said this on Friday, whatever you want to call it, can't lose, win-win, the ultimate win-win. I'll call it win-win because it sounds better. The ultimate win-win game for me. Ultimate. Because if the Niners lost and the offense looked putrid, I could say, well, I mean, it's Mac Jones. I mean, I said when Mac Jones coming out of college, noodle arm, doesn't move well. Pretty accurate, depends on the day, but leadership concerns. By the way, also a very dirty player. It didn't work well in New England. Now, a lot of quarterbacks couldn't have worked in New England. They wouldn't have looked as bad as Mac looked in those last couple of years there, regardless. So if they look bad, that's Mac Jones looking bad again. But if Mac Jones looked good, and by the way, can we show you his numbers? Credit where it is due. Mac Jones was excellent. 3 touchdowns, no picks, 279 yards. I forgot to list his completion percentage. It was 67%, 2 out of 3 passes, 113 rating, and a QBR 0 to 167. That'll work. Now, again, some of this is that New Orleans is a bad defense. Some of this is the fact that New Orleans defensive coordinator is Brandon Staley. Doesn't help. With that being said, it's almost as if folks like me and others who have been portrayed as the bad guys, so to speak, for saying, Brock Purdy leading the league in pass rating 2 years ago, stats probably aren't indicative of the actual player, probably more indicative of the system. And boy, did we see it play itself out yesterday. Now, again, some of this, the Saints are the worst team in football, to be fair. But it's not like Mac Jones was a world beater. I think the line of demarcation to the decline of Brock Purdy. What do we know about Kyle Shanahan? Great offensive coach, tends to have a system that isn't necessarily conducive to players' long-term health. We've seen that with Debo and McCaffrey and Kittle now. Ben Johnson's kind of the same way. He likes guys to play within structure. That's why Jimmy G worked. Jimmy G was as limited a player as there was. Like Mac Jones, that was my comp for Mac Jones coming out of Alabama. Like he's literally Jimmy G. Like same number, Mac's a little bit bigger than Jimmy, but don't have good arms. Mac's more accurate than Jimmy, but a lot of physical limitations there to say the very least. Decision-making's not great. But when Jimmy played within a structure, when Jimmy worked in play action, the run game was the focal point of the Niners offense with Raheem Mostert and eventually Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey at the end of Jimmy G's tenure there. They got to NFC championship games. They had a 10-point lead on Mahomes in the Super Bowl. The second you ask Jimmy G to be a gunslinger, he misses Emmanuel Sanders on a post that could have won the game. By the way, Jimmy G also has injury concerns, so that didn't help. And then Brock Purdy steps in. And Brock Purdy, mostly more talented than Jimmy, and I said that from the jump. But he works within the offense. He's going to be a distributor. He's going to be kind of like a point guard playing quarterback, so to speak. Going to rack up those assists. He's going to be Chris Paul. Not necessarily a big play guy. He can hit the downfield throw, unlike Jimmy, but that's not necessarily what the Niners want him to do. And they got to a Super Bowl doing that. Came that close to winning. And remember Brock Purdy in training camp last year? You remember this? Man, I want to be like Tom Brady. I want to rip the hearts out of the competition. And I remember seeing that and being like, uh-oh, that's not good. With that offensive line, and San Francisco's offensive line has always been a little bit better than people give it credit for. They've got, one of the greatest left tackles of all time. Regardless, you're seeing a situation where Purdy's kind of turning into a little bit of a Brett Favre, and Purdy doesn't exactly have the arm talent of Brett Favre, to say the very least. And so he's gotten injured more often. He's injured again. The 2 picks last week, both of which were just atrocious throws. He should have, I said this last week, should have thrown a 3rd pick. Reek Woolen, I don't know what Reek Woolen is doing with the tight end and the back right corner of the end zone. Takes an awful angle. It's right there up for grabs for the defensive back to make a play. Gets very lucky on that touchdown pass he threw to the tight end. Stepped in for an injured Kittle. And Mac Jones, not one of the good backups in the NFL like a Jake Browning or a Cooper Rush or a Tyler Huntley. Mac Jones steps in and looks as good as Brock Purdy ever looked. It's almost as if you have any shred of NFL talent, you can work in Shanahan's system with McCaffrey and Ricky Pearsall, who looks really good, by the way. Juwan Jennings and Trent Williams is at tackle, and you've got these weapons, and Ayuk's going to come back. And listen, just because Debo's gone and Kittle's hurt doesn't mean that this offense isn't still exceptionally talented. Mac Jones made it work. And my buddy Ryan, Brock is a nice player, but definitely benefits from the system. Yes, he obviously does. Again, I don't want to make it sound like Brock is like this backup or something. But when you have a guy, he moves better than Mac, better arm strength than Mac. Accuracy, it's close. Decision-making, Purdy's a worse decision-maker. I'm not saying they should bench Brock for Mac Jones. That would be an awful decision. No way. But since he started trying to be a hero and playing outside of the offense that he's not talented enough to do, it's been a problem. He's not the same player. And this guy had folks fooled to think he was an MVP candidate a couple years ago. It's like, oh, you think having Kyle Shanahan, the best tight end in football, best running back in football, great receiving core, excellent line with the best left tackle in football, maybe that might have something to do with it? The fact that exact same cast and characters, I don't know, got Jimmy Garoppolo to a Super Bowl? Put those things into context. That'd have been a great carving up the context segment. What also would be is this. Lions just taking it to the Bears. My gosh, 52-21. Let's talk about the Lions real quick. Dan Campbell, what did y'all do for the first time this season in dominant fashions?
Kneecap.
My gosh, kneecaps were out there just getting eaten all over the place. Lions win 52-21. Jared Goff with the 5 touchdown passes. By the way, Schefter had a really interesting stat. If I could pull this up real quick. Schefter tweeted this yesterday. Jared Goff has now 5 NFL starts in which his team scored at least 50 points. That is tied with Peyton Manning, 5, for the 4th most such starts by a quarterback since 1950, and trailing only behind Tom Brady, who did it 8 times, scoring 50 points. Drew Brees, 6. Lynn Dawson. Shout out to the late, great Lynn Dawson. 6. So, Jared was excellent. Jared's had some great offensive coaches this time, and there's an element. If you're a Lions fan today, you're like, Ben Johnson wasn't the mastermind, behind this Lions operation. Now, I still think Ben Johnson is a brilliant offensive coach and play caller, and I'll get to Chicago in just a second. But if you're a Lions fan, you're like, we got Goff and 2 great backs, and the O-line isn't what it used to be, but we've still got the best right tackle in football in Penei Sewell. We've got Sam Laporta, who's an emerging excellent tight end. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 3 touchdowns, first time in his career. We've got this kid Tesla making plays last week and this week. We're pretty good. By the way, watching that game, again, impartial observer, like I obviously root very heavily for the Lions. I have for the last few years on the show. We don't have to go through that again, but I'm watching, I'm like, how good is Green Bay's defense? Now, again, that's at Lambeau, on grass, outdoors, like we get that, but still. That was Lions moved the ball but couldn't cash in the red zone. Give Detroit their love. Like, Detroit's like, yeah, we're still a factor in the NFC. And I didn't not think that after the loss to Green Bay, but they certainly reinforced that. Like, guys, we're still capable of hanging 50 on your heads at Ford Field. On the Bears side. I said about Mahomes this week, Dak last week. Don't judge the player by the box score. Watch the game. Both Dak in week 1, Mahomes in week 2, far better. Ironically, both against the Eagles. Both significantly better than what their stat line would show. Caleb Williams was worse than what his stat line showed. Again, I'm looking at it right now. 19 for 30, 207 passing, 2 touchdowns, a pick. By the way, an ugly pick on 2nd and long. QBR 0 to 100 to 43, not very good, and a passer rating of 91. The 91 passer rating is not indicative of how Caleb Williams played in this game. I gave him, and still maintain, like last year, O-line was atrocious. I think there was some stat about how he was like hurried or pressured or something along that line, like more than any quarterback in the league last year. But then you have Ben Johnson come in. And then they address the O-line. Like they bring in Joe Thuney from the Chiefs. That was one of the great moves of the offseason. And you have DJ Moore and Ramadunze who made some plays yesterday. The pieces are there, dude. I feel like Caleb doesn't see the field terribly well. And that's concerning. See, I said coming into the season, listen, Caleb's never worked with a coach like Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's never worked with a quarterback like Caleb Williams. And we saw there were some reports at a training camp. Didn't look so good. You had Ben Johnson just waxing poetic about Tyson Bagent, the backup quarterback, and all of these things. And I said, listen, it's going to be clunky early. By Halloween, early November, it's going to start to click. Ben Johnson's too smart of a coach. There's too many good weapons. That O-line's too good. Caleb's too talented. And by the way, even yesterday, you see the talent. The arm talent, the arm angles and the arm strength. He just whipped the ball in there with those tight windows. Like, holy cow. You see why he was the number 1 pick. You see the mobility. I almost underrated Caleb. I knew he could move. I almost underrated Caleb's speed coming out of USC. The guy can move. It takes him a long time to go through his reads. And he almost like panics after the first one and then just takes off running. Like, dude, like you got to see the field a little bit more. And that was an issue with Lamar Jackson in his career, but Lamar's a generational athlete. Caleb can move. He can't move like that. Lamar's the all-time NFL leader in quarterback rushing yards. So that's a bit concerning. Now, the good news for Chicago. Don't know if you saw, but they're playing the Cowboys next week, and Dallas doesn't exactly have a world-beating defense. With that being said, I'm not going to bail. We've seen teams start 0-2. I picked the Bears to make the playoffs. To me, that's not even. If the Bears get in, great. If you're a Chicago fan, be honest. Would you rather get in as the 7 seed and Caleb be kind of a roller coaster, or go 7-10, 8-9? It's like, oh, Caleb figured it out by the end of the year. We're good. Okay, we've got our franchise quarterback. We know we got our coach. Defense, I mean, Jalen Johnson might be out for the year, which sucks. He's such a great player. It's really, really unfortunate. So that Bears defense is decimated already this early in the season. But going into 2026, okay, Caleb figured it out. We're good. Going to year 3. Now there's real playoff expectations. Now we can maybe compete for the North. You'd rather that than 10-7, and it's really the running game and the coaching that's getting them there. That's where I'm at on the Bears. Got some comments up in here. Ryan, slow down the Lions. They played the Bears. Fair enough. That's a legit. Although, remember, last year they played the Bears at home on Thanksgiving. Now, you could say kind of a short week, weird situation. But Chicago almost won that game. If not for the Eberflus bungled clock situation. Ryan also says Caleb still thinks he's in college. There's no question. Like, it's college, it's first read and balls out. Like, it's college. I mean, like Tennessee's offense, for example. It's kind of that way. It's not that way in the NFL. Your head's got to be on a swivel. Peyton Manning's the best ever. Brady and Manning and Mahomes are the 3 best ever at this. I just make their decision. Caleb it's not processing quickly enough for him, and that's a bit of a concern. He doesn't do well with the structure of play. He wants to ad lib, no question. Run around, you can't do that in the NFL. You have to be able to make plays from the pocket. Like, once he gets that down, if he gets that down, then I think he's fine. Because he does move well. He can make those throws outside the pocket. All those, those Mahomes-like arm angles. But if you're not able to nail the quote-unquote meat and potatoes, hitting the easy stuff, that's going to be a question. So that's where I'm at in the Bears. Afternoon games. Broncos-Colts was the best game that nobody saw. Colts won that game in a walk-off field goal, 29-28 in Indianapolis. Listen, we're 2 games in. You don't want to overreact, but credit where it's due. I'm going to start calling him what Colts fans are calling him. Indiana Jones. Daniel Jones. 2 touchdowns in this game. No turnovers. What do you have? A pass rating of 107. Colts move the football. And listen, I'm not going to make the same mistake I did last year where I said Saints are going to be awful. And then the Saints have 2 dominant wins to start the season. I'm like, never mind, I was wrong on the Saints. And they ended up, no, Bryson, they actually were awful. So I'm not going to make that same mistake this year with the Colts, where I thought they're going to be terrible. 2 games in, they look amazing, at least offensively, and then not going to do that. But you look at it and you say, okay, Shane Steichen's had success calling plays back in Philadelphia. Now, he almost got Gardner Minshew to the playoffs in 2023 when Richardson went down. Jonathan Taylor's still one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated running backs in the game. You have Michael Pittman Jr. The kid Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State. I thought he was, respect Colston Loveland. I thought Tyler Warren was clearly the best tight end out of that 2025 NFL draft class, and the Colts were able to nab him and get a real position of need. There's a bit of a Brock Bowers complex to him. He's not as fast as Bowers, but just so shifty and can make guys miss. Like, there was one play, I don't know if it was a screen pass. It was a short pass play, and he's just wheeling and dealing, making Broncos defenders miss. But, of course, the end of the game, they've got a 60-yard attempt to try and win it after, by the way, Denver missed the kick before that. Will Lutz missed the kick before that. They've got a kick with a chance to win the game. Missed it badly, by the way. Denver gets called for leverage for, touching the long snapper, so they get a chance to do it again. And the next kick, sure enough, mulligan right down the middle. And the Colts win on a walk-off. Tough loss for Denver because Bo Nix and the offense kind of got it right in the first half. Both threw an ugly pick in the second half. Sure, Sean Payton will be able to tighten those things up as the season goes on. But a little bit concerning for Denver's defense because they're one of the most talented units in the league. So there you go. Great game. Yes. Again, most people didn't see that because of the Chiefs and Eagles game. Phenomenal game in Indianapolis. Just back and forth. Jonathan Taylor kind of made up for that big fumble that he had last year in Denver when he dropped the ball short of the goal line. So good win for the Colts. And who do they have next week? Who does Indianapolis got? Titans. Okay, divisional matchup, and they're 3.5-point favorites on the road. Interesting. Really interesting spot, but credit where it's due. Ryan says Denver's overrated. Listen, that's a lot of folks had that opinion coming in, and I get it, because folks were like, is that defense that good? Because you look at the quarterbacks they played in the middle of the season, which kind of juiced their numbers. Like they played Kansas City at the end with Carson Wentz and the backups. By the way, Vikings fans, get to y'all in a few minutes. You got Carson Wentz starting for you, so my prayers for y'all. It's not Mac Jones bad, but it's not great. But yeah, the teams they beat last year, not a lot of world beaters. Almost beat the Chiefs, but who was it? It was more about the Chiefs not playing well than Denver playing well. There was a block kick, obviously, at the end. I like Bo Nix with Sean Payton, with that offensive line. He distributes the ball well to those weapons, Cortland Sutton and Mims and all these guys. I think that every team has like one or two games like, gosh darn it, we kind of gave that one away. That's how Denver's going to feel. I'm sure that's how they felt in the plane ride home to Colorado. Who do the Broncos have next week? Denver's, that's a big game. At the Chargers in LA. Chargers, as of now, I'm sure this line will change, are a 2.5-point favorite. That's a big game. Chargers beat Denver twice last season, so that's Broncos definitely going to look to get revenge. A game that looked like a dud and ended up getting really interesting at the end was Panthers and Cardinals. Cardinals jump out 27-3. Bryce is looking overwhelmed. I'm thinking, oh no. Bryce finished last year looking great, and I've defended him, and maybe he can be not a franchise quarterback, but a starter. And he was bad last week against the Jags, and he's bad in the first half against a really good Cardinals defense. Third and fourth quarter, he just absolutely flips a switch. Is wheeling dealing. Deep ball's working, accurate, moving well. All of a sudden, they get an onside kick at the end. Now they got a chance to go down and win it. And then penalties, took some bad sacks. Calais Campbell made a play at the end. I think they said it was the tallest player in the league, Calais Campbell, sacking. I don't think Bryce can't be the shortest player. He's the shortest quarterback. He can't be the shortest player at 5'9" in the NFL. But still, that was a wild and wacky game yesterday in Arizona. But the Cardinals are 2-0. I've said it. I didn't have them making the playoffs, but could I see them being in the picture week 16, 17, even 18? Sure, maybe. I could see that. Then finally, Falcons beating the Vikings 22-6 in what was a defensive slugfest through most of it. Tyler Algier got a touchdown late to pull Atlanta away. I liked what I saw from Michael Penix, given the fact that he was facing a Brian Flores defense. Now, Atlanta could not cash whatsoever in the red zone. They got to work on that. But just getting the ball out quickly, distributing. Kyle Pitts, are we finally starting to see Kyle Pitts turn into the player that a lot of us folks thought that he would be out of Florida? Maybe. But listen, I thought Penix, I obviously loved Caleb Williams in the draft in 2024. I liked Jaden Daniels a lot. He's better than I thought. I loved Penix out of Washington. I did. Moves better than he got credit for in college. I get the injury history. I get it. But arm strength way better than he gets credit for. And kid is dead accurate with a quick as hell release. Again, classic game like QBR 27, 0 to 100, pass rate of 80. I thought Penix was solid in this game. I really did. Against a Brian Flores defense. And as for J.J. McCarthy, we're eight quarters in his career, and he's been bad for 7 of them. Give him credit. Magical fourth quarter against what we now know is a pretty bad Chicago defense last week on Monday Night Football. But, oh, gosh, he had one good throw to Justin Jefferson at the end of the half to get the Vikings a late field goal, which ended up being the last points they got. But, gosh, the kid looks overwhelmed at times. He does. And that shouldn't happen in a Kevin O'Connell offense with those weapons in that running game. And so bad news gets worse for Minnesota. Aaron Jones is going to be out multiple weeks, which is bad for my sister who's got Aaron Jones on her fantasy team. And J.J. McCarthy's going to be out as well. I think he's got an ankle injury, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's going to be Carson Wentz. Gosh, we get 2 backups in week 3. Carson Wentz versus Jake Browning in Minnesota next week. Can the Vikings defense kind of put together a special performance? Sure they can. That's Brian Flores for you. But there's that. So, yeah, recap of week 2 games around the NFL. I also just quickly, like I said last month when I did the quick Taylor Swift bit from when she was talking on the podcast, and she was like, I know if there's one thing that men want to see, it is more of me. Like, and it was really funny. And I said during that segment, which by the way is still kind of doing well on Instagram, so shout out to the Swifties, that I can be at times a bit petty. And so I'm just gonna keep that train rolling. Can we show a tweet? It wasn't a tweet. Is it a truth? A tweet? I forget what they call it. But can we just show this from this particular individual? The NFL has to get rid of that ridiculous looking new kickoff rule. How can they make such a big and sweeping change so easily and quickly? There's a period, not a question mark, but I digress. It's at least as dangerous as the normal kickoff, and it looks like, I think he meant to say hell. It says heel. The ball is moving and the players are not. The exact opposite of what football is all about. Sissy football is bad for America and bad for the NFL. Who comes up with those ridiculous ideas? It's like wanting to roll back the golf ball so it doesn't go nearly as far. Fortunately, college football will remain the same, hopefully forever. That tweet, if you can't tell by the grammar, misspells, incorrect punctuation, and really overall nonsense, that came from our president. And just to throw this out, he says nobody likes it. People love this. I have to imagine that, and I'm reading this from Yahoo Sports. This is the data they presented. The NFL's new dynamic kickoff rule made an adjustment in 2025, moving the touchback from the 30 to the 35-yard line in an attempt to get more kickoff returns. So far, it's worked. In week 1, teams returned 118 out of 156 kickoffs for a 75.6 return rate, 50% higher than 2024. Wasn't that the knock on kickoffs for years? Man, there's no returns. Kickers just booting it through the end zone, starting at the 25. There's no excitement. Now there's excitement. Now you get a situation. Wasn't exciting for me as a Steelers fan, but Caleb Johnson boxes the kickoff yesterday, which was really kind of the turning point in the game where Seattle beats Pittsburgh. You got big returns. It's great. It's exciting. It's more returns. They put the ball at the 35-yard line touchback to incentivize teams. Yeah, the heck with this. We're not kicking it through the end zone. The team's almost at midfield. I don't know. It's just it's ridiculous. Ryan says, I like the original kickoff rules. NFL doesn't care about player safety. That is true. That listen, the NFL does try to hide behind the player safety thing. And I've always said if player safety matters, then get rid of Thursday night football. But of course, you got Bills, Dolphins coming up, and the Thursday night schedule is great. And Amazon's involved. Hit the sunglasses there. I'm sorry. NFL does not care about player safety. With that being said, it's kind of like what I said about the tush push earlier. The more plays of substance, the better. The more plays where anything could happen, the better. It's why the NFL instituted the new extra point rule. It's why they're going to ban the tush push. Thank God. It's hard to officiate. It's boring. It's not entertaining whatsoever to watch. In this case, the new kickoff rule, it's fun. There's more kick returns, better field position in some instances. It incentivizes the teams that are well coached special teams wise. Hurts the teams that are not. The Steelers. So I think it's helped the league, but just to, we know why the president tweeted that, to distract from a little something that he's been trying to distract us about for months, but I won't go into that. And he always uses sports too. That's the weird thing. It's always, they're not the Cleveland Guardians. They're the Cleveland Indians or the Washington team. I actually thought he would go back to the Washington thing, which he did a couple months ago, but now it's the kickoff rule sucks, even though the kickoff rules resulted in more returns and more exciting plays. And I don't know. It's always sportsy attacks for whatever reason. So listen, to anybody that says stick to sports, I would just say tell your president to stick to politics, but I digress. Be back in just 1 minute. Predict the Buccaneers-Texans is going on right now. I haven't seen the score. I'll check during the break. But we got a big AFC West matchup. Raiders hosting the Chargers, and bad blood between the two head coaches. Talk about that after the break. Welcome back to Carving It Up Live. So I'm glad that I predicted Texans and Buccaneers kind of impromptu about 45 minutes ago, because we've already got action. Texans are up 10-7 on Tampa at the end of the first quarter, and Tampa's driving into Houston territory. So much for the defensive prowess of Houston. Looks like CJ's got a touchdown pass, 105 yards already in the game, and near perfect passer rating. So might be a classic old Texas shootout between Baker Mayfield and CJ Stroud. So listen, I'm here for it. I'm here for the entertainment. Speaking of entertainment, not only is this game interesting because it's a divisional matchup and those are rarely bad or boring. Get the background music going on right now. We've got a matchup between the Chargers and Raiders, which features a legitimate rivalry. And by rivalry, I mean these two coaches actually do not like each other. Jim Harbaugh for the Chargers, Pete Carroll for the Raiders. LA, by the way, on the road is favored in this game, -3.5. So this rivalry goes back to Stanford USC. Those don't remember, Stanford was like a 40-something point dog against USC when they were at the height of their prowess at the top of the college football world. And Stanford ends up beating USC, and that kind of starts this snowball effect. The most, outside of that, the biggest game that these two ever coached against each other, 2013 NFC Championship game, Legion of Boom, defending NFC champion Niners, back and forth. It was a phenomenal game. Kaepernick and the Niners are driving down the field, throws a pass, and Sherman makes the defensive play of the season. Bats the ball in the air. Eventual Super Bowl MVP Malcolm Smith picks it. That's when Richard Sherman gave the iconic post-game interview with Aaron Andrews, which was an all-time great moment. But yeah, these two coaches don't have love for each other. They're 6-6, so this is like a nice tiebreaker type of situation. Here's what I'm looking at. So Brock Bowers, last I checked, is he playing in this game? Double check. Okay, Bowers is questionable with a knee injury, and if he doesn't play, that is devastating to the Raiders because he is. I'm just going to get out ahead of this right now. Brock Bowers is the best tight end in football. Kelsey's getting older. Kittle's getting more injured. That's the best tight end in the National Football League. Given what he did last year with atrocious quarterback play, now he's at least got Geno Smith. I like the fact that the Chargers seem to be a good team against the run. Obviously, again, against the Chiefs last week, you don't take that much into account because the Chiefs can't run the football. The Raiders struggled last week with Ashton Genty against the Patriots. Now with an extra day of prep, are they able to get that going more so with Chip Kelly? We'll see. Chip Kelly calling plays, obviously. But I like the Chargers in this spot. I'm gonna go with LA to win this one, 27-22. I really just don't trust Vegas' defense. At the end of the day, there were opportunities at times last week against the Patriots for New England to kind of cash in and get some points on the board. Just weren't able to do it due to some offensive line troubles and Drake May inaccuracy problems, but I got the Chargers -3.5 winning this one 27-22, and I have to imagine it will be a brief exchange at midfield. Carroll and Harbaugh haven't coached against each other since the sorry, I was seeing the music was still playing. They haven't coached against each other since that NFC Championship game, right? I think that was the last time they faced each other. So, like I said, bad blood, or no, I guess it would have been 2014. Harbaugh was there the next year, and then he got fired, which he shouldn't have. So yeah, it's been over a decade since we've seen these two on opposite sidelines. And like I said, the exchange at midfield after the game will be brief. Good game, buddy. Move on. It will no pleasantries. Let's put it mildly. All right. Fun show today. That is all the time we have for the show. Be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, as well as on X, Instagram, and on Facebook. Appreciate everybody stopping by on this Monday. Crazy week 2 around the NFL. I got to say again, and I'll touch on this more on Friday's show, I still haven't quite gotten over that Tennessee loss to Georgia and what was an early candidate for game of the year in college football. Just insane stuff in Knoxville. That hurt. Speaking of college football, check out the Saturday Morning Tailgate podcast every Saturday morning. Of course, it's called the Saturday Morning Tailgate at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time, live on the Grid Network on YouTube and on X. Myself, Tim Barnard, Arthur Hurst, join up. Hopefully we can get you off to a great start to your college football Saturdays, give you the biggest matchups in college football, obviously predict games, give our top 25. We all three get to do our own personalized segments revolving around our teams. With Tim, it's Gator City. With Arthur, it's Buckeyes Breakfast. With myself, it's just a continuation of what we do every Friday on this show, The Vol View. So appreciate it. Appreciate all the support for the show. My man Ryan Flowers in the comments. Shout out to Ryan. Check out NFL matchups tomorrow night. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time. Great stuff. Ryan does an amazing job breaking down all the latest around the National Football League, reacting to games, previewing games, the whole bit. So shout out to my buddy Ryan, who does a fantastic job. Also, again, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. You've heard me bring it up. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast. Also, hit the subscribe button right down there if you're watching on my YouTube channel. If you're not, go ahead to the YouTube channel now. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Be notified anytime any new content is released. We'll be doing some stuff all throughout the week, YouTube shorts, YouTube videos, the whole bit. And, of course, we'll be back live on Wednesday at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific, carving up the context, Bryson's Best 10. Wednesday tends to be a very for whatever reason, tends to be some of my most fired up shows for whatever reason. Maybe it's because of those two segments. I don't know. But very, very excited to talk about the 2 Monday night games. It'll be a fun time. So definitely tune in. Alfred. Alfred's going to be joining us. Alfred Parsard Jr., the host of the Metropolitan Report, friend of the show. Definitely tune into that. Talk Mets baseball and the MLB playoff chase as we get to the last, week and a half of the season. Crazy stuff coming up. All right, we'll see you then. Stay safe out there, everybody. God bless y'all. Peace out. Love you, Joey Aguilar. You came through. Kicker didn't, though. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.